Donnie Robertson gave me my first Valentine. It was a cherry red lollipop shaped like a heart, wrapped in a clear wrapper. The white words etched, "Be mine." We were in 6th grade. It was not cool to admit your admirations for anyone, so I wasn't too put off when he handed me the lollipop with a sideways shrug and said, "My mom packed me this in my lunch. Do you want it?" It was not just my sweet tooth that made me say yes. I was an awkward girl with a huge crush, and Donnie was definitely cool, handsome, popular, confident, friends with all the boys, sought after by all the girls, and I was just this knobby-kneed kid with big teeth, no confidence. There was no way that he really liked me. And yet, that's how Donnie and I began this sweet little unspoken romance. We sat next to each other in school in the front row, and when the teacher washed the chalkboard with a wet sponge, we would lean forward and try and blow dry with our breath. It was this game that he had invented, and whoever got their side of the board dried first was a winner. He had a quick and slightly raunchy sense of humor, especially for a 6th grader. And word on the street was that he had spent some time in public school and had been tainted by those pagan kids. He made me laugh and blush and laugh again, and in the end, that was what robbed my heart. 2 years later in 8th grade, we were all set to graduate, but first there was the dance. The 8th grade dance was a big deal. The event took place in our gymnasium, and we were basically stood around looking at each other pretty much the same way we did in gym class, but this time dressed in our Sunday best, under the low lights and to the soundtrack of 80s love songs. And the girls all clumped in little bunches, and boys hung around the circumference of the dance floor, rocking back and forth and pecking their heads to the drum solos. As the night unfolded, we kids got a little bit more comfortable, and after a particularly energetic and sweaty song, I went to the girls' room to wipe off my face and was shocked to hear, "Donnie likes Maureen?" It came from a group of girls, and it was said in the tone of, "Can you believe it?" I could not. But it was true, and back on the dance floor, Donnie made his way and grabbed my hand and started dancing, not slow, kind of dance where you held each other and swung back and forth and spun each other out and spun each other back in and rocked a little bit more, very little eye contact. But in the rare moment when our eyes did meet, I wondered if mine were as enthusiastically lit as his. He had these dazzling blue eyes, this dark, wild hair, and his lips seemed to be in a perpetual grin, a pirate smile bursting with mischief and possibility. Next came our graduation, and after graduation, Donnie invited everyone back to his place for a party. This was the height of coolness. I'm having a party back at my house, and everyone's going. "Do you want to go, too?" He asked me this time with complete eye contact. In 8th grade, my mom was making her last lap with cancer, and I was happy to escape my home. So I showed up in my floral sundress and my candies, feeling like Sandra Dee from the knees up and Sandy from the ankles down. I was still on the fence and had not fully ripened yet. At the party, the other girls seemed to speak too loud and too fast and laugh too hard. They'd grab each other and huddle together in secret and then shriek in exaggerated drama over any morsel of gossip that they could get their hands on. And I had no way of knowing that everyone was feeling as anxious as I was in that awkward experience. And that's just what 8th grade feels like. But I found it so overwhelming that I found myself to a chair in the hallway of their home, and I basically put myself in timeout. And I just needed to be still. I guess I was experiencing what would now be called social anxiety, but I had no words for it. And after a while, Donnie found me and asked me why I was sitting in the hallway. And I didn't know what to say, so he just sat down and we talked, and he made me laugh, and the night ended with my dad picking me up, and I said thanks, and he said, "We're definitely gonna see each other this summer." But summer came and went, and in the fall, I went to an all-girl private school, and we lost touch, and I never actually did see Donnie after that night. On September 11th, 2001, I watched with the world as the unimaginable happened, and then it happened again. And then thanks to the news machine, it seemed to happen over and over and over until we just couldn't watch it anymore. And then on September 12th, another young man with enthusiastic eyes would get a call, my brother Jimmy, a fireman in New Jersey. His firehouse was called to go over. That's how they said it, my sisters who called me on the phone when I was in California. Jimmy's going over, they said, and I knew what it meant. It meant that he was going to ground zero to help dig through the death and rubble. My sisters also shared a story about how he took his team to the barge that would take him directly to the site. He pushed his way to the front of the line and he met up with the dispatch captain in charge, and Jimmy informed his captain that his team should go first. And the captain asked why, and without missing a beat, Jimmy told him, with the type of humility you can only find in New Jersey, "'Cause my guys are the best." My brother, along with 1,000 other first responders, would step into the wreckage, his team responsible for carrying out the job of digging through rubble. They were instructed that if they came across any paraphernalia that was a cop or fireman related, a helmet, a buckle, an axe, they were to halt the work, call over the foreman, and the foreman would try and decipher which unit the item belonged to. And those men and women from that unit would carry out the remains of their coworkers. I never forgot that story. It made me realize that in the midst of chaos, there is still the opportunity for some code of ethics, some order, some ritual. It was being performed even in the midst of all of our confusion. My brother would carry many stories back to us. Most were of the variety that we wished he didn't share, we wished he didn't see. And then there was the day that he carried out a story that would change my relationship with the fallen towers. "Hey, Maureen, you know who worked on the 105th floor of the North Tower?" "Who?" "Donnie. Remember that kid, Donnie Robertson?" In that moment, I watched the buildings fall. One last time. And although I had seen him fall 1,000 times, it felt as though it was for the first time again. Donnie was 35, the newspaper said. His family and friends were the most important things to him in the world. He was the one to tell the jokes, pick up the tab, call the car if you needed service. If you were friends with him, he'd make sure that he took care of you. There was a loyalty that went way beyond friendship, the newspaper said. And when I read those words, I knew exactly what they were talking about. The article said that he had a wife and 4 kids, and that it was hard to find a photograph of Donald Robertson Jr. for the prayer card for his memorial mass. He was seen in all of the pictures that they had of him with a kid climbing on him. There was the family had to crop him out of a family reunion shot to get a photo without a small arm or leg dangling around his neck. His little girl Madison would only let Donnie put in her pierced earrings, said one of his sisters, Kathy. And this was the ultimate hands-on, gentle dad. Kathy remembered her mom making her take her brother, who was almost 9 years younger than her, to church every Sunday. But what she didn't know, said Kathy, is we'd pull up, he'd run in, grab a bulletin, come running out with a car full of us, and we'd drive off to Friendly's. He was always up for the ride. On the 9th of September, on each September, I think of him. I think of those 2 scrappy kids blowing dry the chalkboard. I think of his eyes, his smile, and of my first funny Valentine. I think of the way that relationship crept into my life, slowly fading out, hovering only long enough to help me over a particularly rough patch. Every year on 9/11, my mind plays a film. I see the bright red Valentine. I see the red of the fire engines, the red of the fire, the blood that was spilled, and the rest of the film is in black and white, because there's some stories that you never really want to color in all the way. The only other color is the blue of his eyes, the type of blue that's beautiful and bright and brilliant. And it somehow explains how I feel when I heard about him passing, red and white and very blue.